Alright, so I'm ready to start actually footing this. And what do you suppose one of the two big dangers of flipping this over and trimming the bottom without it attached to a bat might be? I'll give you time to think about that. So what I'm going to do now though is actually kind of eyeball my pot. If you notice, if you haven't noticed before, the wheel head has all of these kinds of circles. There's one right inside the other. Does anybody know what that's called? Yes, I pretend just like you're here. Those are concentric circles. And I want to place it right inside, so I kind of center it within that concentric circle that's closest to it. And that's how I kind of start the centering process. I do need to center it, otherwise it's going to make the foot or the trimming part uneven. So I start by just eyeballing it, getting it closest to that circle. Then, with my wheel going, I would try and mark a circle on there nice and stable. And I don't know how well you can see that, but it's skinnier, the space is different between the outside to my circle here. It's narrower than it is over here. So right in the widest part, I push just a little bit toward the skinny side. And then I mark again, and I check it's still a little bit narrow here compared to there. And I move it again. Okay, have you thought about the two big dangers when you're footing? One of them is that since this is not anchored like it was when I was throwing it, it's not stuck to the bat. If my pot, if the lip of it is too dry, it doesn't have any tack and it kind of slides off. Or if I get it going too fast and I don't have it anchored, it's going to slide off. Okay, so now I think it's pretty well centered. And I'm going to show you two different ways to foot. One of them is with a slightly taller or taller piece that has a narrower neck. I'm not going to show you really narrow necks in this video or for the flex day, but I am going to show you a moderate, like a cup, a coffee cup, the width that you might have for that. I'm going to show you the bowl in a second. I'm going to hold down on the top. I'm going to press a nice fat coil in and down, but mostly just down. If I push too hard, I might either crack, move, or misshape the pot. Again, I'm going to hold that down gently but firmly. Take another little coil piece, again in and down, but mostly down. So I'm getting that stuck to my wheel head. And at least three or four pieces generally, not little tiny chunks. Nice fat coil of soft but not real sticky clay. You don't want it to stick to your pot and make your pot all ugly. Okay, once I've got it anchored, now I'm going to actually start trimming. So I'm going to erase my little ring there. Hopefully you're able to see what's happening. My footing tool of choice is this double-ended loop tool. I notice fairly long, that if I can get far enough away. So if I spread my fingers out, my finger and my thumb, it's about like there are shorter ones. I want the really long one. And there's a curved end and a square end. A lot of times I'll start with the curved end, but then I move to the flat end to get that just a little bit more even. But really it's kind of a personal preference. But I trim the outside edge first. If I trim the inside first, I don't know how far to come out. So I'm going to trim a little bit more. I'm going to start a little bit lower. Again, my piece should be just about perfectly leather hard. This is a little bit soft, so everything's going to kind of stick a little bit to it. So I'm shaving the outside here, and I have to keep stopping and getting rid of any of my little bits that stick to it. Now notice I'm making a little bridge with my left hand. Of course, left-handers, you just do the opposite. But I want to get this so that I've got a nice gradual transition. I want to think about the shape of my pot. There are lots of different foot shapes, so you got to think about that as you're trimming. I'll try to remember when I go to assemble this video, put in a picture of some different foot shapes as well. If I don't, then I'll just show you live and in person. Again, this is still just a little bit soft, but I'm kind of rushing it just so that I can have the video ready for you. Then you can take either credit card or one of your scrapers Pardon my sniffling. The dust in here is getting to me. But I can cup that and I can make that really nice and compressed. Otherwise, a lot of times, when you're trimming like that, you expose little grog holes. You don't want that, so I made that nice and smooth. Now, there are other shapes I can get as well. I think I mentioned that. So maybe I want to instead have it to have a little pedestal kind of thing. So just to give you another idea there. So I can make that little ring. I like these because they give me a different place to change my glazes. And because my scraper was wet, my fingers are a little wet too, and everything's sticking even more. So if you noticed, I'm using, so far I've just been using the square end. Probably should have hair dried this just a little bit more. Patience is very important here. Do not try and throw and then immediately foot, because it's gonna, either your pot's going to collapse or everything's gonna stick to it, or you're gonna get it misshapen and mushed. Okay, so that's another possibility. So it can just complete the form, or you can bring it in and make a little, almost like a little separation, a little pedestal kind of thing. Then I recommend strongly, when you're first starting to foot, it feels safer to just have the wheel creeping along. That is really not helpful to you. I recommend having a target line, so you know that this is going to be your foot, this is getting carved away. Now I can't carve very much here because it's not very thick right now, or right there, right in the very center. But I recommend starting at that line. Again, it feels safer to creep along and just barely have it moving. That's when you get really ugly feet. It'll get really uneven, kind of choppy and gross. You want to avoid that. I can get it deeper, closer to my foot than I can in the center, because again, I open down a little further than I ought to have. If you go too thin, this is your other danger. One of the dangers is your pot flying off if you don't have it anchored, or if you go too fast. The other danger is trimming through and actually just cutting a hole in the bottom of your pot. So I'm going to go through there. I'm going to make that nice and smooth. Again, my pot is not very thick, so I've got to be cautious. You got to be kind of wary. You have to be cautious. Okay? That's pretty much it. Alright, so if I take my chunks of clay, very carefully peel those away. And then, so that's, oops, I'm off camera. So I took my little pieces away, and so now that's my finished piece. I'll take a picture of that so you can compare it side to side. It probably is still a little bit thick here. I could set it back on there and trim more. So that's where I need to kind of be aware of where I'm trimming and what kind of range I have. When you go to sign this, you sign it inside here, or you can make your potter's mark off to the side. Do not sign it on that ring. And I don't know if you noticed, but before I took it off of there, I also had my finger, I just went over that edge, over that footed ring, so that that was nice and smooth. You don't want that ragged. That's going to end up really messing up any surfaces that you set it on. It'll make it really messy. Okay, so again, your initials, your potter's mark, your name, whatever you sign it with, that should go inside, or if you made a potter's mark here, you could do it there too. But do not sign it on that ring.